Odds are you're in college and you're struggling with your studies. Now, this is not because you're stupid, this is not because you're not hardworking, this is because you don't understand how to play the entire system. I have truly struggled with this. I've failed in multiple subjects in my college in the first semester, and then after that, I realized how the entire game works and I completely automated the whole process to the point where I was barely studying 1 week a year. In this video, I'm going to talk about the story about how I learned how the entire game of college study is played and how you can use this to your advantage, whatever your goals are. So the first thing you need to do is you need to understand what is your goal with the college syllabus. Is your goal to learn things? Is your goal to just pass the exams and get through this because you're focusing on something else? Is your goal to get a good GPA because you want to go for a master's degree? And the way you approach your studies is going to be completely different for all three of these things. When I was in my first semester of college, I truly wanted to learn things. I had come from a mindset of curiosity. I was really interested in computer science, physics, mathematics, chemistry. I was really interested in everything and I was eager to learn. I go into college the first day and we're learning really fun stuff in physics about like magnetism and electricity and quantum physics and stuff, and I'm truly enjoying it. I would spend most of my free time learning more about the physics syllabus. I would truly read research papers on physics. I would even read research papers that my professor wrote about the topic, etc., etc. You know what happened? I failed physics. I almost had to drop a year because of how the exam was, etc., etc. And you know what the crazy part was? The crazy part was that the questions that were in the physics paper were already told to us. If I had just kept my eyes and ears open, I would have known the entire question paper of the physics exam. And just because my focus was too much on learning and too much on curiosity, I completely failed the exam and I was going through intense stress. Even while I was traveling during my vacations, I had to study a lot just so that I don't fail. At this point of time, I realized that college is not for learning. At least for me. For me, college was just a way to get through these exams, probably get a decent GPA, which I did end up getting, and do what I wanted on the side. So I learned a few things. The first thing is that most of your teachers do not have the competence to draft a good question. Most of your teachers are unable to draft a good question, especially in numericals. Do you know how difficult it is to create a mathematical problem and make sure that the answer you get is not a random number with 10 decimal places? It's almost impossible. And your math teachers know this. So what they're going to do is they're going to repurpose the question from somewhere else. Maybe they will double the number or half the number or something, just so that they get the self-satisfaction that they've created a new question. So once you realize this, once you realize that even the numbers of the numericals are going to be the same, it's very, very easy for you to just memorize the entire thing. In fact, I have friends who would just memorize numericals as it is. I have friends who would just memorize line by line of the numerical with no idea what it was, and they would just repurpose that in the exam and get like insanely high GPAs. Especially when it comes to theoretical subjects like physics, there's a decent chance that your teacher does not know what the subject actually means. And I'm not saying this out of disrespect. I'm just saying this out of the fact that most college teachers are so ingrained in their way of thinking that they can't really think out of the box. So you need to know exactly what they're looking for in the answer and give them that. And if you spend just about 1 week in the semester just trying to figure out what your teacher wants to hear, you'll be able to repurpose that exactly. The next one is people get distracted too easily. So in my opinion, I would not spend over 2 weeks a semester studying, period. And when I say I would not spend over 2 weeks a semester studying, it's not like the people who say, oh, I just studied last night and all that nonsense. It's that I would truly open my books 2 weeks before the exam, and 2 weeks and 1 day before the exam, I would not even know the subjects that I had. But in the 2 weeks that I studied, I didn't do anything else. My focus was completely on the studies. And the big mistake that people make is that they try to juggle both. I personally failed all my midterms, like almost failed all my midterms. But in the final exam, I would kind of make up for everything and get like a good GPA. But if I spent my whole semester, trying to study like 30 minutes a day so that I can maintain my midterms and all that, it would not have worked. Because the brain is very single-minded. The brain can basically only focus on one thing at a time. And if you tell your brain that from 8 o'clock to 8:30 you want to focus on mathematics, and then from 8:30 to 8:45 you want to focus on physics, and then from 8:45 to 10 p.m. you just want to focus on your startup, that's not going to work, because your brain is going to be thinking of too many things simultaneously. So truly, give yourself an amount of time that you want to actually spend studying, and that comes from experience. If you've gone through at least 1 or 2 semesters, you know how much time you're going to need. But in that time, don't do anything else. Don't even attend a single phone call of your startup. Don't even attend a single phone call of your internship. Just focus on the studies. But for the other time, don't focus on studies at all. Just don't look at it. Now, what do you do in this 2-week period or whatever when you actually want to study? Now, I truly hate reading. I have very low attention spans. Everybody in this world has ADHD already. I can't spend my time reading large amounts of books. So what I did, and this is something I learned in the second year, is that almost every engineering subject has a YouTube video about it. There is some guy in some remote part of India who's going to teach you this subject on YouTube. So what I did is I would watch the YouTube video and I would write down everything. Everything he says, I would just write it down. So in about a 2 or 3 day period, I would have basically written the entire syllabus down once. Now take this for like 5 subjects, so that becomes about 15 days, which is the 2 weeks that I've spent studying. So all I would do is write down the entire syllabus once. And this is enough to get you to just pass. This is enough to get you to kind of understand things to the level that you just pass. Now, engineering is not that complicated, especially in tier 2, tier 3 colleges. I'm not sure about the tier 1s. I didn't go to one of those. But in the tier 2, tier 3 colleges, the average competence of the student is not that high, and the engineering college is not going to be okay if everyone fails. So you have to understand that they cannot make it difficult. They need at least 95% of the class to pass. And if you go with that mindset, you know that it's not going to be that big of a deal. So maybe they'll see some numbers and some signs and some symbols that look like ancient Greek to you, but it's not going to be that difficult to understand. Lastly, I would like to say that studying in college is not a bad thing. I'm so glad that I studied in college. I'm so glad that I actually put the effort to go through it. And not because of the things I learned. There's no chance I can remember any of the things I learned during college. But what happened is that I had to force myself to do something I didn't want to do. And this is a very important skill when it comes to business, when it comes to working for a company. You have to be able to have the ability to do things that you don't want to do. And for those 2-week period when I would very intensely study, I would truly not enjoy it. It's not as if I enjoyed learning about climate change. It's not as if I enjoyed learning random math equations that I still have no idea what they mean. It's that I pushed myself beyond my limit. I pushed myself to a point where I did not have an option. If I didn't study in those 2 weeks, I would have to fail the year and do it all over again. And that, for me, that was not an option. So I created a situation where I had no option but to get through it. And you know what happened? I got through it. I basically did not fail in any other subject except for physics once in the first year. And that's partly because I kind of just figured out how the game is played. If you found this interesting, if you want to know more about my college life and my opinions on other things, or if you have some advice for me, I'd love to hear it in the comment section below. Thank you.